agenda today, talking about airframe and power technology program. And at the last special meeting, we decided to have another special meeting where we have a report from the instructor and some students, should he decide to do it that way. And so I think at this time we're going to turn it over to Mr. Carroll.
Good evening, Board of Trustees, President Espinosa. I've handed out some more information tonight. It's actually a copy of the speech I wish to give you this evening, and is in addition to the material that you will find on the board books. If you refer to the front cover of this, you will see that the Airframe and Power Technology Program began FAA certified courses for General and Power Plant in fall 2012 and FAA certified courses for airframe fall 2014. The program will complete its first cycle of courses in 2015. I thank you for allowing me the opportunity to present a rebuttal to the material that was presented last week in favor of closing the Airframe and Power Technology Program. Last week I was surprised to learn that this decision is based purely on financial considerations. I am pleased because the program has generated cash over expenses since its inception to the amount of $85,437.54. The Director of Technical Instruction gave you the following information in the chart below, making it appear that the Airframe and Power Technology Program has cost over $1.2 million to run for the 8 years that it's been in operation, while bringing in only about $500,000. As you can see in chart 1, this is the information you were presented by Dr. Barrett. Fortunately, both Mrs. Warner and Mrs. Bernal recognize that grants are not expenses. So the conclusion was reached that the college had spent $600,000 while making only approximately $500,000. And here you can see in chart 2, again corrected, to take out the grants. But this is not the whole story. The matching funds for the JET grant were incorrectly presented. As you can see in section 4E of the JET grant copy, which I have provided on page 1 of the supporting information. That would be this one, the supporting information, page 1. This comes from the actual JET grant. The expenses were only $48,990 for personnel, and the rest of the matching funds were equipment and materials that were provided by Sikorsky. There were no cash matches. Therefore, you can see in chart 3 that without the cash corrected for the match, that the CBC general fund budgeted funds equal about $410,000. However, the tuition and contact hour reimbursement that is now posted in the administrative report is $495,000. To the Director of Technical Instruction's credit, he did not work on the JET grant. I worked on it with Mr. Michael Kane. He would have not known that the JET grant match was essentially an equipment match which had been donated by Sikorsky. The $48,990 for personnel is actually included in the $410,000 of the CBC General Fund budgeted funds as salaries are, which in fact makes this the correct amount for the funds spent on the program since 2008. Thus, we can correctly state from chart 4 that the program's value is in excess of $1 million. The funds spent from 2008 to 2015, $410,000. Funds brought in from 2008 to 2015, $495,000, giving us a net revenue over the term of $85,466.43. Second, contrary to the administrative presentation, the program consistently brings in revenue. As you can see on page 2 of the supporting information that I've given you, this spreadsheet shows a single student who enrolls in the program will generate revenue for the college in tuition, fees, and contact hours of $13,339.21 over the course of the airframe and power technology program only. This is not including revenue from academic classes. Plus, this revenue is due to increase starting in fall 2015. Thus, as seen in the chart below, revenue generated per student in the airframe and power technology program gets a net revenue of $2,309.90 per student, even with the administration's student AAS and level 1 certificate count of 37 students. That is in chart 5. Finally, as you can see also on page 2 of the supporting information, we have provided the future revenue projections that are positive due to the increase in contact hour revenue from $6.43 per hour to $6.74 per hour starting fall 2015. So, our contract revenue will increase, and this will be especially true if we're allowed to admit new students for the fall 2015. I hope that given these facts, you can see that the program is not only viable, it is sustainable. Another major issue brought forth by the Director of Technical Instruction last week was enrollment. This was also misrepresented. As stated in the program report and board book, the enrollment per class is used to evaluate academic courses, and it does not reflect the realities of workforce programs or FAA limitations. On a seats available basis, you can see that airframe and power technology utilize a high percentage of seats available compared to other workforce classes. In fact, if you were to calculate per class the enrollment of aviation, drafting, medical coding, even accounting, you will see that all have an average of less than 10 students per class. A better way to evaluate a workforce program is an overall program enrollment and contact hour revenue. Contact hours are a much better way to understand the way in which a workforce program operates. The state funds workforce programs at a higher rate in recognition of the expense, certification requirements, and class size limits. As a point, one student taking an English class will make about $2 a contact hour. He's only going to take that English class one time. An aviation student takes 25 aviation classes and comes in at $674 next year per contact hour. So you can see the difference between academics and workforce just right there. Over the course of a program, as compared to a single academic class, a workforce student's contact hours provide more revenue. You can also see in chart 7 that the contact hours in the program have been increasing. We expected the drop after Sikorsky closed, but we went to FAA certification as an answer. We are not just supplying a local company, we are now supplying the industry globally. Enrollment is on track to further increase in fall 2015. In fact, contact hours are projected to increase 15% with the addition of only 3 students. The airframe courses being offered for the 12-week summer and fall 2015 semester are at or nearly at maximum capacity. Compare this to Del Mar, which has 4 full-time instructors. You'll see we're doing quite well. I put Appendix A into your package. This is the Del Mar schedule. As you can see, several of Del Mar classes have single-digit enrollment numbers. And I give you that not as to bash against Del Mar, but for your understanding that seats available is not a correct way to define a workforce program. Contact hours. That is the way to do it. Therefore, given these facts, you can see the program is growing. The third concern brought up last week addressed the issue of employment opportunities for airframe and power plant graduates. There are in fact many opportunities for an A&P graduate. The idea that a newly licensed A&P mechanic will be immediately working on an aircraft shows a complete and utter misunderstanding of the industry. An A&P license shows an employer that the employee has skin in the game. It is normal that a new mechanic will be working support operations while gaining experience before getting to the point of exercising their privileges as a licensed mechanic. In fact, the FAA regulations require them to serve under a mechanic for at least 6 months before they can exercise their privileges as a licensed mechanic. As such, there are a plethora of these supporting operations jobs available to the students. And I have included into Appendix B, giving a breakdown that will show you state by state the employment statistics of aviation across the country. I wish to make one point in this that not too many people know in the industry. Texas is aviation's gas stop. We are their filling station. Texas does not tax aviation fuel. All aviation operations for the major airlines fly into Texas to fuel and service their aircraft. That is why we have a 17% higher employment rate than any other state. In addition, Texas A&M at Corpus Christi is developing a 2+2 agreement with aviation programs to allow students who complete an aviation associate's degree to enter the bachelor drone technology program currently under development at Chase Field. In summation, the Airframe and Power Technology program is a new program that has yet to reach its full potential. At the end of the spring 2015 semester, FAA certified training will have been in operation for 8 semesters, which includes a 12-week summer. We must have 1,900 documented clock hours in the classroom for these students to qualify for that license. Therefore, we must work a 12-week summer just to fit the entire schedule in 2 years. And in 2 years, we can get them 2 degrees, airframe and power plant, 2 level 1 certificates, airframe and power plant, 2 licenses, airframe and power plant. The program has a high level of student success that supports the overall CBC mission and vision. The persistence rate is 94.5%, well above the state average. In our entire existence, we have had 3 students drop, none fail. The actual number of certificates of completion required by the FAA since the beginning of certified training is 14 general certificates, 14 power plant certificates. Let me explain. There are 3 areas: general, airframe, power plant. Sometimes Gen Ed, what we call the academic courses, gets confused there. General, the beginning courses for the students, cannot be divorced from airframe or power plant. You must have general and airframe, or general and power plant. We're also looking at an additional 3 general certificates and 11 airframe certificates anticipated to be awarded at the end of the fall 2015 semester. This will total 42 certificates of completion being issued. It is at this point that a student continues on with their academic coursework for a CBC Level 1 certificate and or a CBC degree. Finally, there are some financial implications that have not been shared with the board in regards to the deactivation of this program, such as the agreement with Sikorsky Aerospace Maintenance concerning the college's responsibility for the donated equipment and materials. I have included this as page 3 and 4. In our agreement for accepting these donated parts or equipment, we accepted that we will ensure the parts will be used for training aids only. We will make sure none of the parts will be utilized to fulfill any government requirements. We will not market or sell the parts. We will make sure the parts will never enter the supply chain of aviation. In other words, we must destroy the equipment. The information that I presented you today demonstrates the true state of the Airframe and Power Technology Program. From my perspective, it is illogical for the board to approve deactivation of this program. This program brings in revenue, the program is growing, and there is demand for this program's graduates. Thank you.
Were you going to have any of the students?
The students would like to save their responses concerning the teach out, should we get to that point.
Okay, well then, thank you for that presentation, and we'll move to item 4, which is the actual consideration and possible action on deactivating the program. And I guess at this time I'd ask, do you have anything further that you're going to present other than what you presented last time?
It's, no, our recommendation stays the same. There are things that were mentioned today that clearly are not considered as part of the plan in developing a recommendation to the board, but those are, they go with any program. The example given today, grants with equipment that needs replacement, and it is on a maintenance replacement cycle, so we have to take that ownership in the near future. We do not have intention to sell that component that was mentioned that is tied to the grant, the jet grant. It is the inventory that we're processing at this point to identify what those components are and equipment. But just like we're having with every other program that we've had for some time, all the equipment and technology needs to be updated in order for us to be teaching that level of work that prepares students for the workplace. The overhead has not been mentioned, and that's consideration for all programs, and they don't run on their own. They're aligned with the college and college operations, the utilities, the space, the benefits are not included in the salary because we combine all those with our response to the budget line item for benefits for our faculty and staff, for our employees, is combined. So those are never separated, and those were not presented because we don't separate those. We can certainly do that. All that to say that there are definitely other costs that we are aware of but did not include in the calculation. We are aware that workforce has had to look at, we've had to look at workforce differently than our academic courses. Unfortunately, there is no difference in our policy currently for our workforce courses to say our 450 total teaching weekly contact hours is a policy that's across all our faculty, not just, and so we need to come back with a recommendation to the board should we identify those courses or that workforce program that requires less of that 450 total teaching weekly contact hours. We have paid what we call overload because the courses are being offered, but they're not offered in a sequence and students don't start as a cohort. for example, like Rad Tech, where they all start and go through the sequence of courses together and graduate after a 2-year period. These students can come in and out at any time, and so there is no calculated plan for them to complete. And the structure of these courses are offered in this sequence, and they have to be taken in this sequence in order for students to migrate to the next certificate, to the associate's degree, to the next level. So that causes extra costs for us as well, and may extend for students what they're able to finish, because they're taking different courses, the general versus the airframe versus the power plant at different times. So I'm not sure, Dr. Baer, if you had anything else you wanted to add.
There's some issues over matching funds. This is the jet equipment grant round 2 application form.
That's, they got that.
I just wanted to circle that $59,000 matching fund. That's all that's indicated by Sikorsky.
This is
It's
the
59,000.
college match
With
versus
cash?
Sikorsky match.
Yes, ma'am. That's great.
So they only gave $60,000 basically in equipment,
From what the grant is telling you.
so the rest is coming from the coastal bend.
Now, the information.
No.
May I talk? Thank you. I gave you your shot.
Get it right.
The equipment that Sikorsky gave us is not so much equipment as it is torn up parts that were salvaged and given to us. Mr. Carolyn is right in the fact that these cannot ever be allowed onto any type of commercial aircraft ever. And that is a true statement. But it can be used by us or by some other aviation program. The statistics of the graduates are historical. I can't look forward in budget, I can't look forward in contact hours, I can't look forward in the number of classes. Because what I base my view on is that 12th-day enrollment. How many students actually paid and wound up in the class? Mr. Carolyn's has never hit the magic 12. There is no actual magic 12, by the way. Okay, I've talked to the FAA, his name is Fred Raymond. We've talked to him a couple different times, gave Mr. Carolyn the opportunity to come into the discussions, and he refused. Mr. Raymond has told us, has informed us that there have been, sorry, I lost my train of thought. Told us that the growth of the program is not up to them. We can sit 25 people in a class. The limitations of 12 are self-imposed. And the only answer that I've ever gotten when I've asked about 12 is that the fact is that I've been told that there is not enough lab space. I disagree. I think we have a considerable amount of space afforded to the aviation program in both concrete and area space. Mr. Carolyn complained that he has a small classroom. That could be easily changed if we had the growth that we anticipated. The statistics show that we've never hit in the whole length of the program a completed course with 12.
Point, you're gonna shut us down here?
The summer semester has 12.
This summer semester is not started yet, and we have not hit the count day. When the count day comes, and you've got 12 in your class, I'll shake your hand.
We're all here, all of us.
I'm gonna rise to a point of order, guys. I know y'all are really emotional about that, but board policy is if you continue to interrupt us, you're gonna have to leave the meeting, okay? And nobody wants to do that, so please just try to hold on to it, okay?
Questions from the board?
The equipment that Sikorsky donated.
I don't have an itemization.
Okay, and does the, I know that vehicles,
I'm sorry, I couldn't.
in vehicles, the equipment keeps improving with technology. And I'm assuming that works with airplanes also.
I would assume so, yes, ma'am.
And that if, and that's right to your point, is if we have equipment that Sikorsky gave us in 2008, 10, then in 2020 or whenever that equipment may be obsolete.
Very much so, yes, ma'am.
Or part of it. I mean, the metal might not be, or the pieces that they put together, but the electronics, I would think, would be not accurate at that point. At some point, it's gonna get obsolete.
It's a very equipment and science-based type of business. And yes, ma'am, I mean, we.
The automotive, the same thing.
Yes,
I mean, in
ma'am.
automotive, we had to upgrade that
We went
equipment.
from carburetors to fuel injection.
Right.
You're doing the same type of leaps in aviation.
And is that being I mean, we're considering that in our decision today because we are going to have to replace this technology equipment anyway, maybe not the metal.
It needs to be depreciated and
Okay.
finally depreciated out.
And where are we on that cycle, or do you know?
No, ma'am, I don't.
Okay.
I know that all of our equipment is basically from the get-go,
Right, right.
except for some meters that we recently purchased.
We have tried to do inventory. We're in the process of revisiting our inventory for the college, but when we did it a couple years ago as part of our response to our property insurance, we had to go throughout the college and identify our property so that we could estimate a value for this equipment. And Mr. Carolyn would not let us in the area because it was top secret. So we do not have that in hand, but we will access it and go determine what that inventory currently is.
What is top secret?
That's a good question.
It's the information we were provided.
We've got Mr. Carolyn right here.
I've seen. Speak.
Mr. Chairman, I'd suggest we give Mr. Carolyn the opportunity to
I
respond.
think so too. Go ahead.
The equipment is the top secret. What the equipment is, we don't want to advertise it. We're very close to the border. This material could be used by nefarious individuals. We have, you wish the inventory. The inventory runs for pages. It fills an entire building. The same aircraft equipment that is used today is the same aircraft equipment that was used in 1981. The same aircraft that we use for our certified training for the FAA was built in 1954. This equipment we have purchased is only 2 years old. We have enough materials and equipment for 10 years of operation before we get to the point of needing to replace equipment. The reason I said, I did not say top secret, this is confidential. That's Mr. Claw. I will not let him take pictures of it. I do not want it advertised. It is military hardware. And we do not have the security to protect it. Our best protection is to hide it in plain sight. However, if you do wish the full inventory, it does exist.
It's not insured without us having it to give to the insurance company. So
As
it's-
scrap,
if it burns to the ground, we're.
It's scrap, that's what should happen to it. It is scrap, but that scrap has training value, and that's where the key is. Being used as training material, this, even as scrap, this material is irreplaceable to an aviation program. We would never, ever have gotten to the point of ever affording any of this.
Mr. Carolyn, when Sikorsky was here, they were doing a contract that was an A-to-L program, which was bringing an aircraft that was in the 80s to an aircraft that was in the 2000s. And they were changing the equipment out in it
Yes.
to be a more efficient and newer model, even though the plane itself was the same, the equipment inside was being upgraded.
Yes, Mrs. Fisher, and that is an important point, particularly with military hardware. These students, when they get on the line, working with the newest stuff, they will get that education then. But even with the older stuff, a circuit is a circuit. Think back to the beginning. Here we tell them, this is a circuit, this is how it works, here's how it may have worked before, and having that equipment to train to do that gives them the foundation to go on to the modern day that they will need on the line.
So when Sikorsky, with the contract they had here, we're moving this equipment from A to B, or A to L, as they said, A to L.
Yes.
Then L is what the equipment's going to be for these guys to go work on.
When they get to work, yes.
Right. So if they trained on A, how are we gonna learn how to do L on the job training?
They learned with A that it even exists. They train, yes, part of what I said, that no mechanic coming out of here is going to go directly.
I understand.
They must spend some time learning. That is part of that learning.
Is it in your plan to someday have them train on L? Since it's A to L, I mean, that concept is a weird language.
And I understand that. Believe it or not, the A model came out in 1981, and I was just a youngin' then. Yeah, I was quite the youngin'. Never thought that I would see the cycle get to the age where we would actually have one in an aviation school. Because helicopters last for a long time. They're overhauled continually. They move the model designations. The units that we have were actually crash damaged beyond repairable condition. So whether they were A models, B models, C models, D models, it makes no difference. The equipment is the equipment, and how it is utilized for the training is where the importance comes in. Will we ever have an L model? Probably another 20 years from now. It could be a good possibility. But I even teach magnetos that the Wright brothers used, because we still use them today. Aviation has a strong belief in not throwing away something that works. I know that many pilots will not fly on electronic ignition or fuel injection. They have to have a carburetor, they have to have a magneto, and we service those individuals too. So that is the real premise of the A&P license. We work on anything, so we must know a little something about everything. And that is why we need a diversification of equipment. And the equipment, once it gets to the non-usable point, gets scrapped out. At present, we couldn't take another purchase or another piece of equipment in. We just don't have the space. However, give us 10 years from now, and then it'll work out. But in 10 years from now, the program will have generated enough revenue to take care of that.
I have a question. Do you have sensitive material or hazardous material that would require calling in specialized individuals to get rid of it? And what would be the cost approximately? I know you probably don't know exactly, but.
On such type of equipment, and most commonly in aviation, it would be what we call the turbine igniter box. It is a sealed unit. It is radioactive, has radioactive material inside of it. You must be careful not to cut it open. But as far as disposing of that equipment, it must be sent back to its manufacturer, who will then charge us to dispose of it. We do not call in a special disposal. We have to send it to that manufacturer or a manufacturer that will receive it for disposal. Our problem comes in the fact that there is so much equipment there. Every hinge on every door must be ensured that it cannot return to service. It has to be sawed through. Everything has to be destroyed to the point where it cannot be used on an aircraft. That would be the only item we have. But radiology has radioactive equipment.
Right.
Okay. This is quite safe within the student's means. What's unsafe is, and what we train on, is what's coming out of that box.
Right.
Okay, that's where we have to be. That's why we provide that training. And even then, for our training purposes, only on the live running turbine engine do we have an active unit. Okay? As far as the rest of the equipment goes, the main thing we have from Sikorsky are 2 rotor heads. Now, the rotor heads hold the blades on top of the aircraft. We have 2 complete full rotor heads, and those rotor heads just in themselves were the matching funds for the TMPG grant for $449,000. So the value has different values. As aircraft material, which it cannot be used for, it has a very high value. As scrap material, it has very low value. As a training aid, it is priceless.
I have a very simple and direct, straightforward question. In the report last week, we looked at 2008 to 2014, right?
Yes, sir.
And we looked at total expenses and total revenue. How much money did we gain or lose in this program last year? I mean, let's set aside startup costs, let's set aside the value of the equipment. Let's say, what was spent last year and what was brought in last year? Did we make money or did we lose money? The year before that, did we make money or did we lose money? That's what I'm interested in knowing.
We don't have that. We can get what the actual amount was, and what it will show currently is what I shared with you at the first meeting, which was the salary and any supplies is typically all that falls in there, but it doesn't include the overhead for any of the programs.
Well, then, I think for us to make an informed decision, that information would be very useful. If I'm gonna make an investment, personally, I expect to know it's gonna take however long for that investment to mature, to where I get into the black. How long was this program anticipated to run? I know it's had some changes. Have we gotten to a point where we can say, hey, we're losing money, we gotta shut it down? Or are we at a point where we have just begun to see the fruits of our investment, time, personnel, material, etc.? I think that would be the very minimum that I would wanna see to make a decision that would be, you know.
This recommendation doesn't come from 1 year analysis, it really is a long.
Well, then can I see where it comes from? I mean, I saw the report last week and I saw 2008 to 2014 and that, I mean, those numbers look solid. But
This is enrollment. It's matched to some other things, but enrollment. 2011, to average it out to 8.9. 2012, 10.17. 2013, 7.27. 2014, 7.7.
I got all
But
that.
we're seeing growth drop.
I got all that. I got all that. What I wanna know is bottom line. I want a dollar amount. Can we have a dollar amount? I mean,
Let's
Mr.
see
Carolan
what
has
it is.
provided us with some information about how we get funded for these students. We have received information from you about how we get funded for these students. What's the bottom line? No, I mean, you know, what's the bottom line, honestly? Isn't that something that you could provide to the board so that we could make an informed decision? I see the numbers. I asked Dr. Bear last week, just for curiosity's sake, and he and Mr. Carolan didn't even agree on this. Is the funding for a workforce pretty much the same across the board, you know? And Dr. Bear said yes, Mr. Carolan said no. I think that just for kicks and giggles, I'd spend a couple hours, I thought that I'd spend a couple hours looking at enrollment for this last semester, for our current semester. Just looking at courses that are open, not canceled courses, not courses that were shut down, just open courses for spring. I mean, I see there's so many ways that we can look at this information, and I think the only way that we can make an informed decision is with that bottom line dollar figure. I mean, airframe power plant, 84 slots. All I did was add up the number of slots available in a class, add up the number of classes, multiply, and then I figured a percentage. How many butts are in seats in these classes? 58%, 39 out of 84. And so I looked at some others, automotive. And I don't mean to throw any program under the bus. I went down the list until my eyes started to cross and then I quit. Automotive was 52 out of 155. That's available seats. Criminal justice, CJLE was 92 out of 155, that's 59%, almost identical to airframe. CJSA was 45%, 72 out of 160. CRIJ was 28%, 123 out of 435 slots. Now, what I can't tell from the data that is available online is how much each program is spending in overloads, because that has been consolidated in one portion of the budget. So it's impossible for me to read that budget in any kind of an informed way, because I don't know what is being spent on adjuncts. And then, I mean, there was one that I will share with you. Dental hygiene, 92%. Wow. Not to throw anybody, like I said, under the bus, not to look at these programs. This information by itself is absolutely useless, because I don't know how much we're spending to support each of those programs. I don't think that we can shut something down unless we know whether it's making money or not. This is a good window into one small part of this, but we don't know what we're deciding on. Not based on the information, from my humble perspective, that we've been provided.
Finances is certainly a consideration, but it was not the only consideration brought before the board.
I didn't see any of the financial
They did it
considerations.
for the whole time.
Right,
They
but-
didn't do it by year.
Right, but we started any program. If I start an English program and all I use are pencils and paper, my initial expense of pencil and paper, how's that gonna be appropriately annualized? I mean, how are we gonna appropriately annualize the costs of the program starting up? I wanna know if it made money last year and if it made money the year before. If it did, why would we close it? We're helping students, we're helping the community, we're giving people an opportunity to improve their lives, and we're in the black. Now, if we continue to stay in the black, then eventually, if you start at 2008 and go to umpteen, whenever, it'll be in the black as a program. You know, like buying a truck. You're gonna be, what, upside down for the first year or two. You've got to annualize that cost. That's what I wanna see. What are we spending per year? Have we made money or have we lost money? Does the program, does it merit keeping it financially? Then beyond that, and I agree with you, you guys gave us a lot of information, both Mr. Carolan and Dr. Bear, about the human impact of the program. We heard quite a few things from the students a few weeks ago. So even beyond the finance, I think that there are things that we should consider. But if we don't know what the program's making this year and last year, et cetera, and I know I'm beating a dead horse here, I don't think we can make a decision. I wouldn't feel comfortable making a decision.
I agree.
Hey, guys, I appreciate it, I really do, and I know that emotions are high. I really do. But here's the thing. If this had come before the board in a normal way, instead of through the rumor mill, and if we had had an opportunity to all come together and discuss this, emotions wouldn't be running so high. You know? So in the, looking forward, this is something that we should probably discuss about what's the most appropriate way to handle it. But I do ask, and I appreciate that everybody's here, and I appreciate how important it is to everybody, but I will repeat my fellow board members' request that we keep it, under control, because there are important decisions being made here. I mean, there's not just y'all's lives, there's taxpayer dollars and the best use of our resources as an institution, I just wanna make sure that we give this all the information, get all the information we can and give this all of the attention that it deserves.
I was just gonna ask Mr. Bear, Dr. Espinoza to respond to the reason why the administration, again, just go back to giving the overview, why is the administration asking to close the program now? If it's not just
It has been
financial.
reviewed for several years. All our programs are reviewed on an annual basis. This one, along with a couple others that the board did deactivate, were the machinist and pharmacy tech program. It was due to the very same situation that we're dealing with airframe, very low enrollments. In the case of the other two, the industry preferred to train, and the state licensure did not require the degree. So we make a recommendation then to deactivate those programs and do a teach help plan for those students, which we did. And so this is in that same fashion being recommended because of the consistent years of low enrollment in the program. the lack of jobs in the area, the one employer, gone 3 years now.
And with respect to Mr. Caroline's point on, I guess, on the recent FAA licensure, why does the administration not feel that closure at this time is premature?
I have not seen any different effort in outreach and recruitment that would bring us any more students than we're seeing. There's gotta be a really active level of participation to get those students. We're not a nationally recognized program, we're not a state recognized program. So by name brand, we're not already just recruiting students on that level. Dr. Baird?
I base on historical data. I try not to extrapolate for future, because in these types of calculations, we're looking for historical data. What has it done from this point back? We can wish, hope, extrapolate forwards all we want, but what I'm seeing and what the board has been presented is flat.
And what is the downside to continuing the program from the administration's standpoint?
Downside?
Yeah, what's the negative?
Other than the fact that, in my opinion, we're going to lose money. I think we're going to lose enrollment. But we can still be the smallest aviation program around.
Well, I would like to say, I'd like to get back to, I know my question was long-winded, but let me reiterate it in a slightly compact way. Can I see the bottom line for last academic year and the year before that, what it cost the college or what the college made? Can I see that information? We can put in all of those extra expenses you said weren't in either presentation. I mean, we can talk about projections and past, I mean, we've got to see year by year if we're digging ourselves out of the hole that we built by initially investing in this program, or if we're digging ourselves further in. Is that possible? Is that something that I can see?
You have two different sets of numbers, and that's what, it's like, okay, why does one group have one set of numbers and administration has another set of numbers? What is it? To me, it should be consistent, I would think. So I'm just curious as to how it is that Mr. Caroline, sorry if I mispronounced your name, sir, where did your numbers come from? And then administration, where did y'all's numbers come from? And why is there a difference? I'm just curious, I'm trying to understand this.
Dr. Baird has mentioned that we base it on the 12-day census data.
Yeah, and I got that part.
I'm not sure that they're using the same period, because those numbers do fluctuate in those 12 days. And we only get reimbursement from the state if we reach that 12th day. So that is the basis of our count for those. As far as the financial numbers, those come from the business office.
Right.
Those are audited annually, so we've asked our business office to provide those numbers for us. We have not
And those numbers match, it's just that there's a discrepancy about what Sikorsky donated or didn't donate, or what.
Okay.
And we can eliminate that part of the discussion if we look at year by year. Is the program gaining or losing?
Yes, Ms. Burnell, I actually, in my presentation, used the administration's numbers with the exception of counting grants as cost and the matching fund question on the JET grant. Other than that, the numbers I used were exactly the same. In fact, we even used the calculation of 37 students rather than the 55, because we wanted to show that even at the lower rate, the program was still solvent.
I'm gonna jump back in here real quick. Can I get an answer to my question? Can we see what the cost or revenue is year by year in this program? Is that something that can be presented to this board? I just want a yes or no.
Are you talking tonight or in the future?
That's, could be part of the answer. It'd be great to know though.
I cannot provide those, but broke down by year, sir,
Okay.
at this time.
I know that we have some different numbers, That's fine. But I wanna know if the program's making money or not. Real simple. If we're sitting here in this is the third meeting where this has been a topic of discussion, and nobody thought to say, hey, it might be a good idea to know if we're gaining or losing year by year, there's a problem with this process, and we need to take that up at a future date, soon. How do you make a decision about something like a program without knowing whether it's gaining or losing? How can you possibly do that? I'm flabbergasted.
When enrollment is less than double digits on a consistent basis, I can assure you are losing.
Why double digits? I appreciate your assurances, but I wanna see it in paper.
I came in 2012 and we started the program review process that had been on hiatus for a few years here. At that point, I introduced the program review handbook. That handbook clearly defines that our faculty are to begin the process of review of their individual departments to do an analysis, a self-study of their work, of their areas, and make recommendations on an annual basis to the college for budget development, or commitments and obligations, or partnerships with the workforce and industry, or outreach. I called that very clearly, return on, total cost of ownership and return on investment. To this day, not one of them has been able to provide that.
I'll also point out that Mr. Carrollman was invited on more than one occasion to be part of this review process, and he flatly refused every time that I've asked it, whether in front of the vice president or closer to recently. I've reached out to Mr. Carrollman to please assist me in the complexities of his program, and I was flatly refused.
So are we deliberating here whether or not we're gonna get rid of an instructor or whether we're gonna shut down a program?
Sir, this is all based on the program.
Okay, okay. I'm just curious.
I'm just trying to explain that we received very little help from the instructor, and that's all I was asking for. If we wanted to really show the program, I would have assumed that I would have had more cooperation.
In rebuttal, I did submit program reviews for the last 3 years and never received any feedback on those.
Did you say that you never received any program reviews from anyone, or never any program?
Never received a total cost of ownership or a return on investment in any one of the program reviews, which is outlined in the handbook as the role of program review.
Well, I can tell you let's see, this is
This
2015.
program.
I can tell you in 2012.
So the request for what is my total cost of ownership, I don't have that number yet. I can estimate it, I can say 30% overhead, I can say, based on square footage, he has, I don't know, 2,000-3,000 square feet in lab alone. So I can give some estimates. We haven't applied those across the board to any of our programs. Recommendations have come from them.
So the answer is it's gonna be very difficult, it sounds like.
Why?
To come up with it.
Why?
Because of what she's just talking about, you're gonna estimate how much footage they've got access to, and I don't know.
Well, I'll tell you what, why don't we do this? Why don't we, if we're looking at programs, if we're looking at whether to keep or close programs, then you eliminate the factors that are universal. You eliminate the universal factors, that cost of overhead, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. How many square feet
And you're not
is,
getting a true picture.
well,
And that's
you
what was
start,
presented, that's
you
what we
start,
have.
then you can divvy that up. But, if we're gonna make decisions that impact people's lives, and I'm talking about the whole community, I think we ought to be better prepared to do so. This is insufficient data to make such an important decision, and that's the bottom line. If you wanna give me estimates, that's fine, but give me what they're based on. This shouldn't be a rushed process. I don't know if I'm the only member of this board who didn't know about this until a student brought it to my attention, or if the entire board didn't know that we were considering closing a program. But then we would have had an opportunity to ask questions. Now, I'm going a little far afield, but that's something that we need to discuss at a very near future date as well. But I would like to see some bottom line figures. I'm hearing, I can guesstimate, I can estimate, we can go out there and, you know, count parts, whatever. What's it cost?
You have the information that we have at this point. I'm happy to go back and look for more if you choose to send me back to look for more.
And I move that we keep the program until such time as we're provided with information to show that it is in the best interest of the institution and the students to shut it down.
Second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second that we continue the program, at least until such time as we can be presented with other financial information to support deactivating it. That's basically what you said.
Yes.
Okay. Discussion on that motion.
Wanted to ask Mr. Caroline if there's anything further before we take this vote, that you wanted to present to.
I would just like to reiterate that with workforce programs, seat count is not the best way to calculate the program's value. Contact hours per student, given the 25 courses that these students take, it's more comparable analysis to workforce than comparing it to a single academic class. I just want to reiterate.
And that's true, because I find that even at our high school.
What did you say? I didn't understand.
That's true. It has the contact hours that you get, like even with our CAPE, they generate more funds than our regular program. So whenever we lose a CAPE program, our funds are reduced, you know, because of the decrease in enrollment, of that nature, so it does impact the funding source.
Personally, I think contact hours are still only a part of the answer. That only supplies the income side of it. We still need to have a better handle on what the expense side of it is on a annual basis. I mean, other than just looking at the number of students, it would be nice to know some kind of way what the costs are, and we can take a look at the contact hour and contact hour reimbursement, and we can get the income side, but we only have the total for that year period as far as budgeted funds. Do you have any idea what the budgeted funds were for this year in comparison to, I mean,
Contact
just-
hours come as a whole to the college as well, not by program. We submit our data, they respond, and it's on a delayed cycle, a biennial cycle. And this year, for contact hours, we got about $6.2 million from the state for all of our college programs. We get about 25% of our funding from the state. Our new formula funding is a $500,000 base per annual biennium, and a 10% formula funding for meeting the different success points, and 90% of what's left for all 50 college districts, after those two things are taken out of the equation, is what comes out for contact hours.
Well, there was a discussion that it grew for air from 630 something to
643 to 674.
74. How does he know that?
That's posted on the THC site.
Every year or other year, several years, the state gives a different reimbursement rate for the different programs, depending on what that year is. And again, I'm not sure.
Again, I based on my analysis on historical, not projected, and realized that the state rate was reduced by 49%. Actually, we get 49%.
Yeah. You have to reduce.
And I've never, I'm sorry, sir, you may have misunderstood me. I don't ever remember saying that workforce is all equal. It's not.
Oh, then maybe I misspoke my question.
No problem, sir.
Thank you.
I tell you
No
what is
offense
equal,
intended.
what is equal on our end is tuition. We don't charge a different tuition for workforce students versus academic
Right.
students. It's the same. We add some fees for certain programs related to labs or extra activities, but not, tuition is the same for all our students.
So if we're reimbursed at the same rate for contact hours, then it should be pretty easy because the difference between workforce and academic, and I'm just a former English teacher, you'll have to bear with me over there, math piece, is figured locally and submitted, right? So we could easily see what are the contact hours from that program and then use the reimbursement formula to see how much the revenue is from the state, is that correct?
I thought that this, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, I apologize. I thought that the state figured that based upon all of our contact hours.
All our submissions.
They're the ones that figure that out because they don't want us playing with that.
Right, but we submit the contact hours.
Yes, sir. Through state data reporting bases that exist otherwise. I mean, it's not just for the sole purpose of. They look at all of our numbers that are reported, determine the contact hours for workforce programs, and then determine the reimbursement rate based on whatever program.
So we could reverse engineer from our reimbursement what percentage of it goes to what program based on the hours that we figured?
We got 18.
I know. I just spent a few minutes today when I
Yeah.
started across. I feel for
I'm
it.
sure we could do that. I'd probably retire by then.
Don't have to worry about going gray.
That's true.
Yeah.
If with the motion on the floor, I'd like to know specifically what we're asking. I want to identify what we're asking administration to do.
We're asking, I'm asking
Okay.
administration.
But you left it broad in the motion, so I want to know what
Well,
we're gonna.
in the motion, I asked until such time as we can determine whether the.
Right, so I want to know what it is that we're looking for, so we can make that determination.
On a annual basis, we need to compartmentalize year by year. Are we gaining money or are we losing money in this program? Because if we're making money in the program and we're serving the community, then you'd have to really come up with a good reason, that in my humble opinion, that we should shut down a program that is producing revenue, regardless of the size of the revenue. I mean, think about all of the other benefits, the human benefit. But if it's losing money, that's something that we should see, and it should be easy to tread. That's empirical data. That's not, well, I can guesstimate, it's this number of students.
Well, but you also have to worry about overhead. I mean,
I know.
you can't just look at the salary
I am
and the
aware of
revenue.
that, yeah.
So we'll have to look at everything. And it is you're only looking at cost, or do you want to know, I mean, I think they provided us, I think Dr. Bear provided us the numbers of students. I think you disagree with the numbers, but it's based on the 12th day.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so do you want that information broken
Well,
down per year?
Well, we have to use the information by which we determine the number of
Do you want to see that?
students. Oh, yeah, I'd like to see everything.
I'm trying to
so
determine
that
what it is that we need, so we can.
What do you think we need so that we can determine what the bottom line is in a program?
I'm not sure, I really need to default to your question, I don't know what it is you're looking for. We provided you what we normally would for any program that we're making a recommendation.
Okay, you guys provided us with information last week that started in 2008, ended in 2014, that said that the program's losing money.
Actually, sir, I think it went all the way through 15.
Okay.
I may be wrong, but I think I used spring 15.
But it was start to finish, right?
It was totals.
Right.
Totals.
Yeah.
Are we ramping up our revenue? Are we dropping our revenue?
If we're basing that on student enrollment, historically, we're going down.
How can we put a unambiguous dollar figure on that and determine whether we are gaining or losing net per year in this program? If we can't do that, I cannot imagine a situation in which we wouldn't be able to do that. And now I know that we've got to look at overhead, et cetera, but
We also have to look at students, we have to
Right.
look at contact hours.
I totally agree.
And that's in the revenue side, I guess. But the expense side is the part that you want to see broken out per year, the revenue per year?
Oh.
I'm trying to
Yes.
help them so they know
Yes.
what we're looking for.
That's what I'd like to see.
Okay.
A P&L statement for
All
the
right.
program. That's
All right.
what, that would be very helpful.
Okay.
Now, in the future, based off your question, I think that we should define the process by which we decide to step into or out of a program. And I don't think that it needs to come to the board in a manner even remotely like this one has. And it needs to be a clear and absolutely transparent process, because I don't think students need to be surprised at work, and I don't think we need to be surprised at work. I think that this needs to have a if we set a process
I
in
think
place now.
I'm gonna rise to a point of order, we're getting a little far afield.
Well-
I agree with everything that you're saying, but it's not on the agenda. You've got a motion on the floor, let's have
Gotcha.
Whiteman.
Okay, I agree.
I'm sorry.
No, you're right.
I agree with what you're saying.
You're right, no, you're right.
Mr. Caroline, I gotta ask you this question. When you started, you said you were surprised that the administration is considering termination solely based on financial considerations. Why were you surprised? What did you think they were basing it on? I gotta ask the
For
question.
the last 2 years, my budget that I have requested from Dr. Bear has been salary only. We are blessed. We are blessed with enough equipment that I have not required, other than some drill bits this year, some meters that were required. We were given money in our budget, but I have not, and again, even this year, I do not, for the program, request any funds necessary to procure any more equipment other than what the FAA may demand us to have, which was the meters in question. Now, we have enough materials and equipment to last us the next 10 years. And it's only been in use for 8 semesters. There's not a lot of expense at this point involved in the program, other than salary.
Mr.
So
Barrett,
I'm surprised.
I didn't mean to cut you
No,
off.
go ahead.
Is there anything else?
It's been my privilege to serve Coastal Bend College, and I look forward to serving them as long as you will let me.
Thank you, Mr. Barrett. Hey, y'all are gonna hate what I'm about to say. I wanna support what the administration wants to do because it's their job to make these decisions. It's why we put Dr. B in place. Is there some part of this that I don't know? Is it only financial? Is there some other reason? Is there anything else? Is there any other meat on the bone to help explain why the administration, doesn't see? Because I anticipate that if the administration comes back and provides a profit and loss statement on a year-to-year basis for the last couple of years and excludes the equipment cost, the initial equipment cost, and excludes those other intangibles that are impossible to determine in the operation of any large entity, that we're gonna see break even or moderate profits. I don't necessarily agree with Trustee Massengill that that's the making a profit on a program that has some interest should be the deciding basis for keeping or removing a program. I still would defer to the executives that we placed our trust in to run this college. And so I think I have maybe a fundamental difference with Trustee Massengill on that, but I still just, is there something else that I'm missing? I mean, I just don't get it.
That man right there is a friend of mine,
That one there is a friend of mine.
so this has been very difficult.
Well, y'all,
That still doesn't answer your question. I tend to agree with what you're saying.
I guess my concern is, and the biggest concern I had was the lack of jobs in this area that was presented. And you know, it appears that Dallas is probably the hub where they're all going in and getting, which,
Dallas,
and
Fort
there's
Worth.
places in Atlanta where you could go get. So, but am I wrong in that the workforce, is there something that we are, as a college, required, the whole idea is to serve your community?
That's why we're a locally based community college, to serve the regional industry needs is supposed to be our primary focus.
Is there anything that you have in the future that would take the place of and use that building, or is there a program that we don't know about yet that may be brought in?
As a result of our outreach and meeting with school districts and business and industry and chambers and community leaders throughout our district, 2 programs have surfaced over the last year, maybe a couple of years, as consistently being requested. It is difficult to bring in a new program when you're having existing programs be that costly for us. We don't have the space and we don't have the capacity to bring in a new program and entertain that. But we've had a strong request for diesel mechanics and culinary arts are the 2 programs that everywhere I go, whether it's in Atascosa or in Jim Wells or wherever we go, those 2 seem to be coming up both from the school district request
From the industry.
and from the industry.
So would that be the plan then for the use of the building?
We would look at, I don't know what the plan, we don't have a plan. We
We
have
would
an
have to
existing
come up
program
with
that's
one.
not deactivated.
Look at numbers and how much, very similar to what we do in this program.
Can I clarify you on one point?
Certainly.
I didn't think that the P&L statement would be the do-all, be-all, end-all, but I think it's an important aspect for us to consider. In addition to other things, you know, and I understand that they're intangibles. The dollar figure to me is one of the least important things to consider, the impact to the community and how we're using these resources. I mean, are we serving the community the way we're supposed to? Are we putting students first? And I understand that if we run a losing program, we won't be able to put students first for very long. I understand all that, but I just wanted to clarify. Finances, it's the one clear empirical piece of this puzzle that we can look at and say, black and white, it's clear or it's not. It's profitable or it's not. And I just wanted to see it before I made a decision, so I just wanted to clarify that.
No, I appreciate that.
Mr. Morrow, if I may.
Oh,
I
sure,
just,
please.
in the vein of this conversation, I just want to say that, first of all, there's the community. Second of all, as far as local industry, we cover 9 counties. That includes, 2 air bases, 1 Army depot. We have not gotten to the end of the cycle where the licensing occurs for the students and where they again begin to apply for these jobs. So we're not just talking about Dallas-Fort Worth. We are also talking about government support at CCAD, Kingsville. And again, these will not be on the line. They would be back shop, what we call back shop jobs that allow them to gain their experience to move up to the line, as is the normal progression in aviation.
So diesel mechanics, and what's the other one? Culinary arts?
Culinary arts are the 2 that consistently have come up in
Diesel
conversations.
mechanics with the oil field is very complex. And not necessarily at this point. Culinary arts, I guess there's lots of restaurants out there.
Well, I mean, we've got a motion, we have a second. We have a motion asking the administration to provide us more information on an annual basis of whether or not we're gaining or losing money, or a P&L statement for the program. Is there any other need? As I thought that was an important consideration if we're gonna.
That's, if we're gonna postpone and pone this again, I wanna make sure we have all of our questions answered. And so that's why I was asking.
I would have been far more specific last week if it had occurred to me that
No,
that
it's
information would be
better
available.
late than never.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a good point. I mean, is there anything else that, any of us can think of
I-
that we might add.
I have a question about what, if the program were to be closed, what would you do with everything? What would you do with all the equipment?
Well, we would start with looking at our current students and identifying an appropriate teach-out plan for them. Then we would start marketing the program. It is FAA certified, so it has value to it. What we can sell, we would sell and package. And there are always colleges or both private and public or universities that are looking to purchase a FAA certified program that we currently have.
When you sell those items, because I know that there's some federal grants that allow you to sell it, but you have to reimburse the state whatever you sell it for. So in essence, you know, like we had a program in the past and we sold some of the equipment and we had to reimburse the state for whatever we made off of that, so the district made nothing from it. You know, does that work the same with this?
The grants that we have do not have that in effect. In fact, we've reached the maturity date of that grant, so we don't have costs back to the state. We would identify those items that are not allowed to be passed forward, and that would be part of the inventory list that would eliminate that when we market it out there.
Hypothetically speaking, before we go to a vote, the administration, you recommend closure of this program, deactivation, whatever the proper term is. If we disagree with you and we say keep it open, is this gonna be something that y'all are going to look at again in 6 months, a year? Is it going to come back? I mean, is there some component of this?
Well, maybe I need more direction from the board on what your expectations are for me to manage the college.
Yeah. I think that's a very good point, and that's the unfortunate side of all this for the program, is that's your job. And at the end of the day, if your recommendation remains the same, you know, I'd like to have everything clear. I think that's fair. But I also want to allow you the latitude to run and operate the college in the manner that you see fit, in the manner that we put you in a position to do so. So I'm very reticent to.
We did meet as a leadership group and discuss where we were with this and revisited what other options were and came to the same conclusion that we needed to stand with our recommendation to deactivate.
Did you review information beyond what you provided to this board?
We reviewed the information that we did not have at the time, which was what was passed out by Mr. Carolyn. We did not have that prior to our putting our minute order together and sharing it.
So there wasn't any additional information, so you guys didn't have any idea what the annualized would have been?
It's not something that we do for any program.
Gotcha. I agree that we should let administration administer the college. We are ultimately, as a board, responsible for what happens here. And if we see at any level in the college something that we think we need to tweak, I think it's our duty to do so.
I appreciate
I'll leave
that.
it
Thank
at
you,
that.
Trustee Massengale. I understand my role.
No,
You want to educate somebody who's not a teacher.
No, that wasn't directed that way.
You know, I feel that the administration is got a better handle on this than what I do. But at the same time, it would be interesting to know how many students it does take for that program to make money. Does it take the double digit or is a single digit enough? I don't know. And y'all.
I'm letting you know, although you want me to provide the specific numbers, I can go back and read them. Any program that we have at the college that is single digits for several years will show.
Yeah. Well, any further questions or discussion? The motion that we have on the floor is a motion to continue the airframe and power plant technology program.
No.
Until further, yeah.
Unless some other information is provided, but basically that's what you're doing, is continuing it unless unless the administration provides some other information that shows it shouldn't be. That's what you said.
In a nutshell, yes.
Any further discussion on that? Not, the vote, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed to the motion say nay.
Nay.
Well, now it's 2 and 2.
I'd like to see the figures. I'm gonna vote aye.
Okay, so that's 3 yeses and 2 noes. Even if I vote no, it means it didn't pass and we're still nowhere. We won't be anywhere with a motion that doesn't pass it. We'll have to have another motion. I'm gonna vote no, so that's a tie, and that means the motion did not pass. So the floor is open for further discussion. Our motions,
When is our next board meeting?
May
May
20.
20th.
May 20th.
Okay. I will move to authorize the president to proceed with deactivation of the airframe and power technology program, which is the exact opposite of what just ended up in a tie.
I'll second.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to authorize the administration to proceed with deactivation of the airframe and power technology program. Discussion on that motion.
I move we call the vote.
Okay? And we'll vote. The motion is to authorize the administration to proceed with deactivation of the program. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay.
Nay.
Right back to
I make a motion that we direct the administration to provide the information that was referenced in the prior motion about providing on an annual basis whether or not the program is gaining or losing money, providing a P&L statement for the program. Is there anything else the administration needs to provide to us? Not that I can think of.
I would think that we would need to see the enrollment
Okay.
per year. If we're gonna look at the dollars per year, we need to see the enrollment and the contact hours per year.
For purposes of ease, Derry, are you getting all this down? Okay. And so you know what my motion is?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And I started my motion, did I not finish it? Oh, the next meeting is May.
May 20th.
Then, I'd make a motion that we table this item until that date, at which time the administration will provide that information to us.
I'll second that.
Okay, so basically, the motion is that we get the administration to provide us with more annualized income and expense statements, profit and loss statement, including enrollment numbers and contact hours, and to have that information at the May 20th meeting. Is that pretty close?
If that's what Darian wrote down, I agree.
Would it be helpful or a hindrance to look at other, workforce programs that are similar, or, I mean, just for comparison,
I
or?
would like to present one program at a time to the board.
That's fine. I just thought I'd bring it up before we have another meeting.
Yeah, well, right now, we have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
A second.
Martha said, yeah, you did, well, excuse me, that's right, Martha second. Okay, now is there further discussion on that motion? Not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion carries. So, that being the only item on this agenda for this special meeting, I will declare the meeting adjourned.
Thank you all.